This video is sponsored by Frome.co. You know, people ask me, they say, Serge, you've done 6 videos for Frome at this point. What do you do with all the canvases? I got a wall right next to my workstation, 4 of them stacked, one on top of the other. And whenever I want to change things up, I like to switch them around just to keep things interesting. I also keep one Frome above my TV. I like to rotate different canvases in and out of that position with the seasons or whenever I feel like I need a change of color. They really tie the room together. Someday, after the value of the dollar collapses and the IMF dissolves, they'll be used as currency to trade for the second most valuable commodity of the apocalypse, Blu-ray copies of Hesher. And then you'll be sorry. My first real job was at Blockbuster Video. It was great. Online streaming sucks. The quality just ain't there, even with lightning fast internet, and what's more, you can only ever stream whatever the streaming site owns the rights to. That's the real problem as far as I'm concerned. I never feel like I'm choosing what to watch whenever I browse Netflix. It always feels like I'm browsing some corporate digital rights acquisition, rollout, equity, asset, business model, 5-year plan or something. This year was probably worse than ever. Only 4 of the films in my top 10 list are even available on Blu-ray. The rest you can only stream. And of the 6 films that are only available via streaming, 4 of them are literally unrentable. You need to be subscribed to Netflix, HBO, and Shudder in order to see 40% of my list. Imagine if every movie studio owned their own chain of theaters, and if you ever wanted to watch a movie made by a particular studio, you had to go to their theater chain in order to see it. This was the system in the 1930s. But unlike the 1930s, instead of at least being able to pay for each individual visit, imagine if they forced you to buy a membership to the theater if you ever wanted to see anything there. That's what modern streaming is like. So right now it's even worse than the 1930s. Blockbuster, on the other hand, was the great democratizer of film distribution, a place where you could choose whatever movie you wanted to watch, except Showgirls. That's the most important thing for me, the ability to curate my own tastes, independent of any corporate distribution deal. But on a more nostalgic note, it was nice having a physical place dedicated to our collective love of cinema. Once Blockbuster went out, all we had left were theaters. Movie theaters were the last bastion of an even partially democratic distribution model, and the last physical place we could go that was dedicated to our collective love of cinema. Then COVID hit, and then even theaters were gone. I felt adrift for most of last year, as explained in my previous video. It sort of felt like movies weren't even a thing anymore, not new movies anyway. But by the end of last year, as most of you know, I finally wised up, and I realized there were actually plenty of movies, albeit hidden behind exclusionary paywalls and exclusive subscription services. And even though there wasn't a place to enjoy them collectively anymore, they were still available. So I finally sat down, and I watched 41 films that came out last year. I don't consider that a lot, but it's a good start. It's a decent sample size. And here's the important part. No less than 10 of them were really, really good. So in the year where everything that could go sideways did go sideways, in lieu of a proper physical place where we could all go to collectively appreciate film, I figured the least I could offer as a paltry substitute was my YouTube channel. So here you have it, against all odds, possibly for the first time since I started this channel, I consider it my esteemed honor and privilege to present to you my top 10 favorite films of 2020. Number 10, Tenet.
One of these bullets is like us, traveling forwards through time. The other one's going backwards. Can you tell which is which? How about no? It's inverted.
Is Tenet really so hard to recommend? I feel like it got a worse rap than it deserved.
You mean reverse chronology? Like Feynman and Wheeler's notion of a positron as an electron, moving backwards in time.
Sure, that's exactly what I meant.
Forcing it into theaters in the middle of a pandemic certainly didn't help, but was it good? I liked it. Character demonstrated through action rather than exposition, scenes that propel the plot forward in surprising but inevitable ways, a heavy emphasis on practical effects, all good things in my book. Look at this, they actually perform some of their stunts in reverse in order to get these shots.
It's beautiful. I've looked at this for 5 hours now.
I love the way that John David Washington punches with his whole body. I love how we get an omnicidal villain who's not just some mustache-twirling loon, who's got both emotional and philosophical reasons for wanting everyone dead. I love how Elizabeth Debicki gets to choose her own fate, no fridging in sight. Plus, it's not every day we get a brand new conceptualization of time travel from our cinema, where people don't disappear in a puff of smoke to another timeline, but rather reverse their entropy, which means they can only travel back in time in real time. So it's really less about time travel and more about reversing the order of cause and effect.
From the bullet's point of view, you dropped it.
But cause comes before effect.
No, that's just the way we see time. Either way we run the tape, you made it happen.
Which is a hell of a thing to simply witness, much less actually wrap your head around. A brief description of just some of the physical implications of inversion has been living rent-free in my head for weeks.
When you exit the airlock, take a moment to orient yourself. Things will feel strange. When you run, the wind will be at your back. You encounter fire, ice will form on your clothes as the transfer of heat is reversed.
I can't say I could fully grasp all the implications throughout my first screening, but then I don't think you're supposed to, and the movie seems to know this.
Don't try to understand it. Feel it.
It's a chaotic little beast, to be sure. One that seems destined to be enjoyed more on repeat viewings. Nolan said in an interview with NPR that you're not meant to understand every single aspect. You're meant to go on the journey, pass through the maze, understand the things you need to understand for the stakes of the scene you're in, and then you get to the end of the movie and you've been on a journey and you understand how you got there. As an audience member, I've always enjoyed movies that if you want to see it a second time, you're going to see a different movie. You're going to see different layers in it. And I'm fine with that. I usually don't understand much until the second viewing anyway, even with dramas. Not that it's perfect. Even at 2.5 hours, it still feels rushed, and even though I always knew what each character wanted in each scene, I wasn't always sure why. All I knew throughout my first screening was that even if I didn't have every detail worked out, like switching between inverted and non-inverted perspectives in the middle of an action scene takes some time to figure out, but the details always felt right, even if I couldn't immediately explain why. Like it felt like someone had thought them out. Also, this movie's a lot funnier than I think anyone gives it credit for.
You British don't have a monopoly on snobbery, you know.
Well, not a monopoly, more of a controlling interest.
Number 9. Anything for Jackson.
You can't win a moral argument with me. I've made a deal with the devil.
Anything for Jackson might be the most obscure title on my list. I only found it because I got a random free trial of Shudder for a week. But it is extremely my shit.
You did it right! Jackson's in there! He's coming back to you!
An elderly couple loses their only grandson in a tragic car accident, but rather than try to cope with their grief in any healthy way, they decide to embed themselves within a troupe of local Satanists in order to learn how to perform a reverse exorcism on a local pregnant woman, who might then give birth to their reincarnated grandson.
Jackson.
But the unintended consequences of the extended ritual threaten to upend everyone's plans at every turn. I love movies that make you wonder whether or not the bad guys are gonna get away with it. Where your palms are all sweaty and your heart is beating, not because the good guys are about to lose, but because the bad guys are about to lose. Audrey and Henry are not accomplished Satanists.
You know, I think we're in over our heads.
They only took an interest after their grandson died. They're only true believers insofar as they want to bring him back to life. As such, their attempts at bringing him back are mired in constant mishaps.
Here to clean your drive.
Yeah, I thought we talked about this. We're still okay.
Pretty sure you and I got a different meaning of okay.
The pregnant woman keeps trying to escape. The wrong ghosts keep showing up. The local sheriff is immediately suspicious of their paper-thin alibis.
Thank you, Talia. My mistake. Yes, I saw her walking.
Walking.
Uh-huh.
And throughout all the twists and scares, the movie does a great job of keeping their grief front and center. The movie actually says something about how we grieve, or fail to grieve, as it were.
I didn't realize how impossible it is to move on after losing a child.
Anything for Jackson was directed by Justin G. Dick, who I hadn't heard of before I saw this movie. And I guess I sort of assume that most low-budget horrors that go straight to video on demand aren't going to be directed by industry veterans. But when I looked them up on IMDb, I was surprised to find an extensive, some would say exhaustive list of credits. And they're a certain kind of credit. What follows is a list of every single film directed by Justin G. Dick that contains the word Christmas in the title. A Puppy for Christmas, Operation Christmas List, 48 Christmas Wishes, A Very Country Christmas, Christmas Wedding Planner, Christmas with a View, Christmas with a Prince, A Christmas Village, Christmas Catch, Christmas with a Prince Becoming Royal, Christmas in Paris, Christmas in the Rockies, A Christmas Exchange, and Christmas in the Wilds. It's the Justin G. Dick Christmas Cinematic Universe. Mark my words, one day I'm gonna rank them all. Number 8, Kajillionaire.
Isn't that amazing?
Old Dolio learned to forge before she learned to write. Oh, actually, that's how she did learn to write.
I love it when movies ask me to put my faith in them, and then they reward that faith by addressing everything that I was worried about. Kajillionaire is weird, no two ways about it. It took me about 20 minutes to dial into its specific wavelength the first time I saw it. Look, this is the first shot of the film. Like, what's even happening here? Is this a musical? Is she about to burst in song? Soon enough, we learn that this is a family of scam artists. But even then, like...
This is not a cheap tie.
Why is he so pleased about a tie with a resale value of like $30? Why is she maniacally plotting a $12.99 Target return?
Oh, I think they sell these at... I have a receipt that'll work for this.
Why is anyone acting the way that they are? But then you're like, oh, they're like...
It's empty.
Desperate scam artists. They're not running scams to try and buy a house. They're running scams to try and buy lunch. And their scams aren't just desperate, they're weird. Like demanding the dollar value of a half-redeemed massage coupon weird.
No refund?
No, I don't refund gifts, but we're almost done. She only wanted 20 minutes.
Can we have that rock for the other 40 minutes?
Even Evan Rachel Wood's character's name, Old Dolio.
Meet Old Dolio.
Old what? Dolio. Old Dolio.
You hear it and you're like, what? Did I hear that right? Old Dolio? Like 2 words? Old Dolio? Alright, fine, whatever. But then later in the film, you find out why she's called Old Dolio, and then suddenly it makes a terrible sort of sense.
Old Dolio. We named her after a homeless guy who won the lottery, hoping he'd put her in his will. But Old Dolio... Old Dolio used up all his money at the very end on experimental cancer stuff.
Eventually, it finally dawns on you. This movie is about parental abuse.
Don't go, hun. Hun. You've never called me that.
I have. I have called you that.
Oh? Call me hun, then.
Early in the second act, one of their scams is to bust into this old guy's house and pretend to be a loving, caring family while they ransack the place. But the mere pretense of proper parental care gets Old Dolio to thinking that she might be better off without her blood-sucking progenitors. And part of the reason it needs to start off so weird is so that later in the film, when Old Dolio starts to recognize the harmful effects that her parents' behaviors have had on her, we might then know something about how destabilized she feels.
$1,575 to call me hun.
But breaking free won't be easy, either financially or emotionally, and the rest of the movie follows her attempts to break away. I don't want to give everything else away, but it's a great film that got almost no press. Not to mention no Blu-ray release, but at least you can rent it on demand at the time of this recording. So go see it before some streaming service snatches up the rights and then throws it behind a paywall. Number 7. Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always.
I want to spend a few minutes talking with you about your relationships, okay? Because they can affect your health. Did you know that? No? All right. So I'm going to ask you some questions. They can be really personal, and all you have to do is answer either never, rarely, sometimes, or always.
Autumn is a 17-year-old girl living in rural Pennsylvania who learns she's several weeks pregnant and needs to leave the state if she wants to get an abortion. After trying and failing to get good health care from the local Fundy Health Clinic,
the video you're about to see unmasks the terrible truth that abortion is an act of violence which kills a baby.
And after trying a couple other things that she read about online, she finally joins forces with her sympathetic cousin and travels to New York in order to get an abortion. I've seen several films over the past few years about a pair of women seeking an abortion together. Some are super depressing thrillers, like 4 Months, 3 Weeks, and 2 Days. Others are poignant dramedies, like Grandma. Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always feels different in that it doesn't feel like it's trying to fit itself into any specific genre. The thing that makes it so distinct is how matter-of-fact it is. There are no wild twists. Complications, to be sure, but only the sorts of complications that could happen to anyone. Like when she goes to Planned Parenthood and finds out her hometown health clinic lied about how far along she was.
No, the sonogram I did before, they definitely said I was 10 weeks.
Where was that?
Back in my town.
I have a feeling that it was inaccurate.
Which means she has to wait till the next day to get the abortion, and so now she and her cousin have to figure out where they're going to spend the night.
I'm going to send you to our Manhattan facility, and they should be able to take you first thing tomorrow.
Can't you call and see if they'll take me now?
By the time you get there, they're going to be closed.
I really can't wait until then.
It sort of reminded me of Bicycle Thieves. They're both stories about two people wandering around a city while their entire material conditions hang in the balance. It's a fascinating mixture of sky-high stakes and the utter mundanity of desperation. Not that the film itself is boring. That's not what I'm saying. Only that I find it interesting that so much drama and tension can play out amidst such a common set of circumstances. Also, the cinematography has been replaying itself in my head for months. The whole film is composed almost entirely of close-ups. There's literally like 5 wide shots in the entire film. It makes the whole movie feel so claustrophobic, so immediate, so personal. And also, like I'm invading Autumn's privacy. It feels like we shouldn't be this close. And anyway, I just love it when a movie combines its cinematography and its themes like that. Number 6. Proxima. Whoa, wait, Serge, you can't do 4 completely obscure films in a row. People will get bored of your list and tune out. Well, people are free to pause this video and go watch these films so that they're not obscure anymore. Proxima tells the story of Sarah Leroux, an astronaut with the European Space Agency who selected to train for a 1-year mission in space as a precursor to an eventual mission to Mars.
I'm very proud to be a part of this very special mission.
But the happy news creates a lot more problems for her than it solves. It's not just that being an astronaut is stressful. She's the only Frenchie on the mission.
Well, she's an excellent engineer, and she's French.
She's also the only woman.
Здорово, мужики. Наконец-то девушка появилась.
Her commander even figures out how to make being a French woman into a thing.
French women are really good when it comes to cooking. I don't know, is that true? Sorry, why don't you come up and say a few words? S'il vous plaît.
But perhaps most importantly, she's the only single parent. And the timing for this mission couldn't be worse. Her daughter Stella has been having a lot of trouble in school lately, plus she's just at a really tender age, and so the prospect of leaving her for a full year is positively devastating. So Sarah is basically an astronaut with all the stressors of a single mom, and a single mom with all the stressors of being an astronaut. That duality gives this film a hyperspecificity unique to the space exploration subgenre, and at the same time this instantly relatable universality that has nothing to do with space. God, please don't put that on the back of the Blu-ray. If it ever comes out on Blu-ray, that is. All I mean to say is that it's interesting whether you're interested in all the nitpicky details of astronaut training. They filmed in the actual European Astronaut Center in Cologne, which is pretty cool. Or if you think space exploration is completely silly and you just want to watch a story about a single parent trying to make it work. It's been about 6 years since I made a video about Evergreen, and I gotta say, not enough Evergreen discourse for my taste these days. Sarah's all about letting herself feel the things she needs to feel, but also compartmentalizing them so that they don't interfere with her job, and she doesn't always succeed. It's an incredible thing to watch play out on somebody's face. I know it's sort of bog standard procedure to show a clip of a woman either crying or bravely not crying and then declare her a great actress or whatever, but I don't know, I don't consider myself a great performer, so I don't always know exactly what I'm responding to in any given performance. But I've never looked at one of Evergreen's performances and thought, bullshit. Number 5. Ma Rainey's Black Bottom.
They don't care nothing about me. All they want is my voice.
It's really hard to make a good film about the creation of art. Netflix released 2 headliners about it in 2020, the biopic Mank and Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. And for what it's worth, I thought Mank was fine. But where Mank seemed content to dramatize the mere politics surrounding the creation of art, the sort of film where you maybe feel clever for recognizing all the historical references and then you kind of zone out for everything else.
He is creepy.
Later, hosen and suspenders. Terrifying.
Oh no, it's the mustache that's the horror.
Don't be around, Marion. He won't be around for long.
Ma Rainey manages to dramatize the actual creative process, which is an entirely different thing and a hell of a thing to do. It tells the story of a day in the life of Ma Rainey, America's most in-demand jazz singer, and her 4-man ensemble band, who've traveled to Chicago to record an album together. But all sorts of stuff keeps getting in the way. First, Ma Rainey's late.
Where's Ma? She with you?
I don't know. She told us to be here at 1 o'clock, that's all I know.
Then Levy doesn't want to rehearse the right songs.
You ain't gotta rehearse that. Ain't nothing but old jug band music. They need one of them jug bands for this.
Then Ma Rainey finally arrives, but her driver gets into a car accident. Then she insists on having her nephew record the intro to the record, despite the fact that he's got a stutter.
Alright, boys. You didn't seen the best. Now I'm gonna show you the rest.
Eventually, a missing Coca-Cola is enough to derail the session.
What's the matter, Ma?
Where's my Coke? I need a cold Coca-Cola.
Ma, look. I forgot the Coke.
By the time the first full song gets sung, a full 57 minutes into this 86-minute film, there's something about it that feels revelational.
I wanna see that dance they call the Black Bottom.
But then, of course...
Check that mic.
1112, check 1.
No. The problem's with the kids, Mike.
Oh, Christ almighty. Molly didn't record the song.
But it's not just that the movie has a great plot, it's also how they characterize the characters. The movie's practically daring its viewers to ask, why do Levy and Ma Rainey have to be such prima donnas? Why do they have to have everything exactly the way they want it before they finally get to work? Don't they know better than anyone else how hard it is to make good art? How nothing's ever perfect? Why would they have any interest in making this process any harder than it needs to be? See, I fell for it. I was asking those questions halfway through the movie. But then it finally clicked. I finally started to notice the parallels that the film was drawing between the creation of art, in all its glorious, frustrating complexities, and the creation of people, in all their glorious, frustrating complexities. We only ever see the tip of the iceberg, the finished work, the public persona, but knowing how the art or the person got made allows us to appreciate them in entirely new ways. So what might seem at first like the petty demands of 2 self-centered divas suddenly makes a lot more sense once we know the full context. Like when Ma Rainey explains why she never makes any concessions whenever she records.
They back there right now calling me all kind of names, calling me everything but a child of God. But they can't do nothing else because they ain't got what they wanted yet. Soon as they get my voice down on one of them recording machines, then it's just like I be some whore and they roll over and put their pants on. They ain't got no use for me then.
And it's not just about fleshing out their backstories. It's more subtle than that. Levy tells us his backstory right up front in the first act.
You don't know nothing about me. You don't know, Levy. You don't know nothing about what kind of blood I got, what kind of heart I got beat here.
But it isn't until the final moments of the film before it really dawned on me how much his backstory had been influencing his behavior all throughout the film. In this case, it isn't his backstory that reframes the plot, which is how it usually goes in most films. It's the plot that reframes his backstory.
I had my fellas play your songs. When I heard them, it just didn't sound like the kind of songs I'm looking for right now.
You got to hear me play them, Mr. Steadman. You ain't heard me play them. That's what's gonna make them sound right.
Libby, I don't doubt that, really. It's just that, well, I don't think they'd sell like Ma's records. But I'll take them off your hands for you.
If I'm being vague, it's only because I don't want to spoil anything. Suffice it to say that I can't remember the last time I saw plot and character and theme interwoven so carefully like this. And not for nothing, but I can't remember the last time a movie made me go from I love this film to I hate this film to no, I love this film again, all within the last 3 minutes. Number 4. His House. Bol and Rial are 2 South Sudanese refugees who fled their home country and applied for asylum in England. While crossing the English Channel, their teenage daughter falls overboard and drowns. As Bol does his best to assimilate into English culture as quickly as possible, and Rial tries in vain to process her grief, the two come to realize that their temporary housing might in fact be haunted and or cursed by a vengeful ghost that has followed them from their war-torn home.
Annabeth has risen from the ocean. It has followed us here.
I don't care much for ghost stories that aren't about anything. I want ghost stories where the characters are dealing with more than just the ghosts. His House is just as much about trauma, grief, guilt, regret, racism, immigration, imperialism, and assimilation as it is about ghosts.
Maybe you are mad, frightening yourself with imaginary things in the dark.
After all we've endured, after what we have seen, what men can do, you think it is bumps in the night that frighten me?
Although the movie never once lets you forget that it's a ghost story too. I feel like a lot of horror films burn through their first acts just tiptoeing through a sequence of slowly escalating scares meant to acclimate the audience and the characters to the mere idea that they're being haunted. No such grace period with His House. This is like the second instance of anything supernatural happening in this film. I think a lot of horror movies only actually have like 45 minutes worth of plot, and then they pad their length with all of these supernatural set pieces that don't actually push the plot in any particular direction, so much as they satisfy some studio-mandated jump scare quota. But the scares in His House aren't random or cheap. Things change with each scare, and as the story goes on and the characters' backstories are filled in, you realize that these ghost sequences are actually teaching you a lot more about the characters themselves than it might appear at first glance. If I'm being vague, again, it's only because I don't want to spoil anything. This one's on Netflix, which is the most popular streaming platform, so most of you can actually go watch this movie once I'm done talking about it. Suffice it to say that this is one of those rare horror movies that saves some of its most haunting imagery and shocking complications for the actual conclusion. The eponymous his in the title of this film doesn't refer to Bol, it refers to... Number 3. Promising Young Woman.
Jesus. Oh, yeah, would you look at that? Good God almighty. Like, how'd you get some dignity, sweetheart? You know, they put themselves in danger, girls like that.
The pitch for Promising Young Woman sounds like something we've all heard before. Every weekend, a woman goes out to clubs and allows herself to be picked up by men who think she's blackout drunk, only to reveal she's stone cold sober right about when they try to make a move.
Hey, Neil. Yeah. I said I need to go home.
Holy shit, whoa, what is this? Are you some kind of psycho or something?
Why'd you say that?
I just thought that you were...
Drunk?
Yeah.
Really drunk?
And often after she's heard them insist multiple times that they're the quintessential nice guy.
I think you should go.
But a second ago, you were determined for me to stay. You were pretty insistent, actually.
I'm a nice guy.
Are you?
The pitch sounds like a slightly less violent version of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, MFA, Revenge, Hard Candy, The Nightingale, even Gone Girl to an extent. And yet there are some crucial differences that distinguish it. For one thing, she's not killing these guys. She might not even be hurting them. It's actually never revealed what she does to them exactly. All we ever see is her own coded tally in a journal. It's implied that Cassie's retributions are probably just social or psychological in nature and not corporeal. Cassie's doing this on behalf of a friend nearly a decade after the inciting trauma, instead of something done to her in its immediate aftermath, like most female-led revenge thrillers. So the movie's not so much asking, how would you feel if this happened to you, and more, how would you feel if this happened to anyone?
What are you doing?
This is a question that most men are not asked by their media. Even most female-led revenge thrillers usually are content asking their audience, men included, to simply put themselves into the shoes of the victim, and then enjoy the vicarious thrill of watching the victim get revenge on her attackers. But Promising Young Woman is different. It's asking the viewer what they would do on principle, rather than in anger, in response to a crime that we know happens every single day.
I don't make the rules. Look, when you get that drunk, things happen. Don't get blackout drunk all the time and then expect people to be on your side when you have sex with someone you don't want to.
Another part of the film's appeal is the way it weaponizes all the most popular Hollywood nice guys. Adam Brody, Christopher Mintz-Plasse, Max Greenfield, Chris Lowell. It feels like the movie understands that it's not the guys who look like predators who often have the easiest time preying. And that's something I think more men could stand to be confronted by in their media. Statistically speaking, we are the greatest threat to our romantic partners, fellas. Let's all act accordingly. Now, it's impossible to evaluate this film properly without talking about the ending. It really sort of makes or breaks it for most people. It's not like it's particularly shocking or like there's any big twists. It's just very polarizing. If you don't want to be spoiled, feel free to fast forward to this timestamp. Okay, everybody ready? The ending to Promising Young Woman sort of feels like it comes out of nowhere. Cassie eventually confronts her friend's attacker at his bachelor party. She handcuffs him to a bed, and then they have this truly great confrontation where she gets to shut all of his rationalizations down.
Did you ever feel guilty, or did you just feel relieved that she'd gone?
You know, I was affected by it too, okay? I mean, it's every guy's worst nightmare getting accused like that.
Can you guess what every woman's worst nightmare is?
But then, right when she's about to carve her friend's name into his chest, he breaks free from his handcuffs and smothers her right there on the bed, which... What? I saw this and I was like, huh? Busting out of his handcuffs already feels pretty contrived. Like, I thought the movie was going to just go ahead and confirm that Cassie had actually planned for him to escape, but that never happens. He just escapes. And then for a film that seemed like it was taking such great pains to avoid any imagery of violence against women, this 2-minute oneer of Casey being suffocated seems weirdly out of place. The groom and his buddy then dispose of Cassie's body the next morning and continue with the wedding as if nothing had happened. But Cassie had actually told someone where she was going and what was likely to happen to her, and so when she doesn't check in at a prearranged time, the cops are alerted and they roll up on the boys in the middle of the wedding. And again, I was like, what? The cops ride in to save the day? Wasn't the whole point of the movie that the system isn't interested in bringing these boys to justice? Did Casey actually plan to die in order to take everyone down with her? That doesn't seem like her. And are we supposed to think that her death was necessary in order to affect change? It feels so weird, so jarring, like it was bolted on from a different film. And ultimately, I just don't think it's super satisfying. But then I thought, what would be? Seriously. What sort of ending could I write that would satisfy my moral compass? And I think the serious, grown-up, adult answer is that there might not be one. I only mean in the sense that this film is talking about a problem that is indeed systemic, that any one person was never going to solve on her own. So perhaps the best that we can hope for is a conclusion that satisfies Cassie, not our sense of justice. Now, I know a lot of people have said that that's an absolutely horrible message to send to the victims of sexual violence, and I want to say right from the get-go that I'm extremely sympathetic to those views. If you think this movie's bad, or even potentially harmful, I want you to have plenty of space within the discourse to say so. Like, there's a reason this section of the video is wallpapered with content warnings. But good messaging and good catharsis are two different things, and that's one of the main reasons why I don't think movies should be obliged to provide us with some sort of moral at the end of them. We don't always need our art to try and tell us how to be better people. Sometimes it just needs to articulate a rage, a frustration, an agony, a fantasy even that's as cynical as it is naive. We can take those feelings and then do something good for ourselves with them, even if what we wind up doing wasn't literally depicted in the film that we just watched. Number 2. This video of Thomason asking for pets.
Okay, I'll pet you, I'll pet you.
Oh, my heart. I got a cat in quarantine. 10 out of 10, highly recommended. Number 2. Birds of Prey.
Number 1, no one is like me. If you wanted to even come close, you would have to go to medical school. Become a psychiatrist, work in an asylum, fall in love with your patient, break said patient out of said asylum, begin a life of crime, jump into a vat of chemicals to prove yourself to a madman, get arrested by the Batman, go back to jail, get out of jail with a bomb in your neck, save the world, go back to jail and break out of jail before breaking up with the aforementioned madman and going out on your own.
Is there anything left for me to say about Birds of Prey that I didn't already say in my standalone video?
Yeah.
A year on, and my love for Birds of Prey has only gotten stronger. It's probably my second or third favorite superhero film at this point. I'm not interested in heroes who save the day anymore. Not for its own sake anyway. I want heroes who are just as clueless and messy as me. Give me 5 characters who are at each other's throats for the entire film, only for them to team up in the last act when they all realize that found family is everyone's favorite story trope.
Unless we all want to die very unpleasant deaths and let Roman go finger fishing in the kid's intestinal tract, we're gonna have to work together.
In hindsight, it's exactly the kind of film I needed to see 3 times before I said goodbye to theaters for over a year. I needed something that didn't take itself too seriously. I needed something irreverent.
That wasn't me.
But you dared him to do it.
Yeah, but I dare a lot of people to do a lot of things.
I needed a movie where the heroes did some really awful things.
I'm just a terrible person, I guess.
And then figured out how to be better.
What? You are so cool.
I'm a mess. I'm a weirdo. I have a skill set that I'm not really sure how to apply properly in order to get the things I want out of life. And I'll probably screw up a bunch of stuff before I figure it out. But give me some like-minded weirdos and I really think I might stand a chance of being okay.
He's gone.
Good. Fuck that guy. Tacos?
Wait, so that means Birds of Prey isn't number 1. What could have topped Harley? Any guesses? I'll give you a hint. It's hanging right behind me. Don't look at the thumbnail and use process of elimination, that's cheating. See if you can guess from just the colors. Which film has this much cold steel blue gray, intercut with these sudden sanguineous bars of foreboding blood red? Even if you don't know the specific film, I bet you can guess the tone right away, maybe even the subject. Any guesses? Give up?
Obvio.
Number 1, The Platform.
Ya ha sido comida.
Eso es tan obvio que ni siquiera pienso decirle obvio.
There exists a prison made up of 2-person cells arranged vertically along a central air shaft in which a massive banquet descends each day, level by level, where people can eat as much or as little as they want during its visit until it reaches the very bottom and then zooms back up to the top at the end of each day. Every month, your level within the prison is reshuffled. If you're placed near the top, there's plenty of leftovers for you each day.
Suerte número 48 es un buen nivel.
But if you're placed near the bottom, you're not really expected to survive the whole month. Those that do usually have to resort to more desperate measures to survive.
¿Y cuánta comida llega a ese nivel?
Nada.
No se puede estar 30 días sin comer nada.
Yo no le he dicho que no comiera nada. Le he dicho que no llegaba nada. Y sí que se puede estar más de 30 días sin comer.
Mild-mannered Goring doesn't really know what he's gotten himself into when he first arrives in the hole. In fact, he thinks he's figured out a pretty simple solution on his very first day.
Pues hay que comunicarse con los de arriba.
¿Para qué?
¿Cómo que para qué? Pues para que racionen la comida. Y que ese mensaje se lo pasen a los de 46 y esos a los de 45 y así.
¿Es usted comunista?
And yeah, that is a pretty simple solution. But it's not easy. You can probably tell where this is going. Unified resistance is anything but spontaneous.
Ahí tenéis vuestro vino, hijos de puta!
Even when the people on the upper levels know full well what suffering the lower levels are going through, getting people to think about anyone but themselves becomes the struggle of Goring's life.
Los de abajo están abajo. Vale.
Pero el mes que viene puede que estén arriba.
Sí, y nos verán encima. Hijos de puta.
I've watched this movie twice so far. The first time was just 2 months into quarantine, and it was such a shock to my system. A cold, hard slap to the face, covered in spit and blood, and other things that'll probably get the video blocked if I actually showed them. Good God, I thought. People are really capable of this, aren't they? But then the second time I watched it was 8 months later, just a couple of days shy of the 1-year anniversary of lockdown. And the second time I felt, well, it felt a lot like Goring felt after his first couple months in the hole. Less of a wide-eyed system shock, and more of this resolved, rooted conviction of, well, what have we learned? And what are we gonna do about it?
Vamos a ver, hijos de puta. O hacéis exactamente lo que dice la señora o me voy a cagar en vuestra comida todos los días. Y luego voy a esparcir la mierda hasta no dejar un puto grano de arroz intacto. ¿Me habéis oído?
What I'm trying to say is that I've never seen a more perfectly satisfying cinematic metaphor for class stratification and capitalist oppression like in The Platform. And as such, it was perhaps the film that I needed to see more than any other in 2020. Like it could probably be the subject of its own video. I'm deliberately keeping the footage restricted to just the first act and brief clips of the second, because I want you to all go watch this movie after the video's done. There's no way a mere review could ever hope to replicate or accomplish what the film manages to do, the way it sets up the rules of its world with this terrifying, inescapable logic, and then explores the implications of those rules with such piano wire tension and unflinching resolve.
¿Sabe lo que hace esta preciosidad cada mes? Antes de bajar en la plataforma, mata a su compañero. Así tiene una opción para que le toque con su hijo el mes siguiente.
Well, I'm all grown up now.
I'm probably the last person on the planet who would ever argue that a film is automatically made better by virtue of its having a message. But there are times when I want a film to dramatize what I am actually going through. Not the literal conditions, but the emotions and the cause. And of course, to make it cathartic, which life so often is not. And that's how I know, plague or no plague, distribution deal or not, movies aren't going anywhere anytime soon. This video is sponsored by Frome.co. Frome creates beautiful canvas art centerpieces that depict the chromatic chronologies of your favorite films, where each color strip represents the average color of a specific frame in any given film. I'm gonna level with you guys. I have turned down other sponsorships from big international brands just because of how cool I think these things are. You think you're gonna get just one, but then you're like, well, is this the one movie that I want to decorate my space? Aren't my tastes more diverse than that? Shouldn't I get at least one of the Jurassic Park sequels? That's almost certainly gonna happen, by the way. On a long enough timeline, JP3 gets its own episode of Schlock and Awe. I just like them. I think they're neat. A distillation of a film's entire color palette presented in a way that's both meaningful and fun to look at. Frome has over 1,000 titles to choose from, and they take recommendations. That's how I got the platform added to their catalog. The product itself is constructed with care, printed at near 8K resolution, and wrapped around a quality lightweight wooden frame suitable for instant hanging. Also, they smell nice. Like a new Frome smell is definitely a thing. I'm having fun with the copy this month, leave me alone. So if you're in the market for an expertly stylized canvas art centerpiece that says as much about your own taste in movies as it does any given film, head on over to Frome.co, where you can get 10% off your order by using the referral link Frome.co/coldcrashpictures. That's Frome.co/coldcrashpictures. I got a cat in quarantine. 10 out of 10, highly recommended. Hi. What's up? How's it going, kitty? She's tweeting through it. That change in the lighting was my cat smacking my light. No. You're a good kitty who does bad things. You can't do that. You're gonna get hurt. My cat is attacking the blinds. Hey. How's it going? Can you hear her purring? Yeah?